Okay, I apologize. We are starting. I apologize for being late. This technology stuff. Does anybody in this room know anything about technology? All right, so welcome to Desert Blockchain, the policy and blockchain session. And tonight we are recording everything, which is being live streamed. It'll be available on YouTube. So if you don't want your image recorded or your comments recorded, then
too late for you.
Yeah, that's right. Too late for you. So, and in this day and age, I think we're always recorded. So I would like to thank Grand Canyon University for working with us to have this awesome space. And my name is Jay Carpenter. I'm the founder of Desert Blockchain. My interest, I've been in the blockchain area for about almost 3 years now. I come from a telecom background, and my interest is in a new realm of naming, addressing, numbering, and identity. So that's why I'm in space, and that's why I started Desert Blockchain. The whole idea behind Desert Blockchain is to create community here. And this is what's actually happening. We're starting to build an awesome community of people that are interested in this area. And these events are designed to foster that. The time before where you're networking and the time after is all designed so that we can. You okay?
I'm here. Is your pizza?
I did get event insurance today. So. Yeah, are there any attorneys in the room today?
Several, I believe.
So, are there any announcements? Does anybody have any questions? Anything you would definitely like to cover tonight?
Tangential announcement.
What's that?
I got a tangential announcement.
Go ahead.
So, Elio Greco, I'm with the Arizona Cyber Warfare Range. So we actually have a space, AZO2, that will be opening next door on October 7th. We'll be having a, not all day events, but about the middle of the day. I think it starts at 11 and goes to about 3. We'll be having free food, tours, and a whole bunch of demos of various types of system hacking, everything from simple little IoT devices to maybe some power plants, data stuff in there. So if you're not already familiar and you want to play with some of these technologies and see how even something like blockchain, how you can attack that and get it to do things it was never intended to do, I would encourage you to check out this location, or if you're way on the east side of town, AZO1, which is right by me.
Out of Williams Gateway.
Yeah, right. Well, not out of, right in front of Williams Gateway. So.
And what were the times on October 7th?
I believe it's 10 till 3, if I remember right. I think we have a page that I can put in the comments there, a meetup for it. So that's all the info.
So that's an awesome day because in addition to the opening of the Cyber Warfare Range here at Grand Canyon University, we're also having the first Desert Blockchain Mining Camp, which is the sponsor of the pizza and the drinks and everything else tonight. So if you're interested in learning about mining, you should check out that meetup. And there is a charge for it, but if you're not satisfied with the meetup, it's a money-back guarantee. So Jason actually is going to be leading that, and we're going to be learning to mine Ethereum, Dash, Burst, and we're going to be talking about Filecoin, which is a way that you can actually make money and become your own Amazon S3 or Dropbox service. And that's not here yet, but that's one of the most exciting things that I've seen available in terms of Filecoin. So. Anything you want to say about it?
Yeah, no, I mean, that covers it, as well as talking about kind of the purpose and the general kind of computer science behind what mining accomplishes, how it secures the network. and kind of its purpose and its role and why you're actually getting money for doing that.
Yeah, I think it's one of the best ways to really get your hands on the whole blockchain space and cryptocurrency and see how it works, so.
Well, in the context of these announcements, tomorrow the Tech Council has an all-day, their first Smart City Summit. So it's up in Scottsdale. There is a charge for that. Good program, 4 tracks, education, transportation, IoT. I'm on the IoT panel and one other track and keynotes. So aztechcouncil.org. There is a charge, but the discount code is SMART, all lowercase, 20% discount. So that's all day tomorrow if your day's not committed and you're interested.
All right. So at the end, I'll announce a few other things that are coming up around Desert Blockchain and also some other blockchain events that you might be interested in over on the West Coast. Yes,
And
question?
similarly, if you're interested in security, down at the Phoenix Convention Center is CactusCon. which is,
Yes.
Right.
So
Yeah.
Friday and Saturday.
Friday.
Friday and Saturday, CactusCon, right, still, and that's free.
Yep.
Or 25 or 45 or donation.
You have any blockchain stuff down there yet, Jake?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, get a bug about that.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking about doing a session probably in November or January on blockchain and cybersecurity, because I think there's some really interesting opportunities there. So if anybody's interested in working on that with me, please let me know. There's also some very, very interesting opportunities combining prediction markets with cybersecurity in my view. So if you're interested in having a conversation about that, please let me know. So, those are all the announcements, the plugs, and hopefully, I'm still kind of working on some technical items here, so please ignore that. So, I planned this session on policy and blockchain. And when I planned it, I was thinking about having a panel of experts talking about, some of the areas that are kind of cloudy in terms of how's this new realm fitting into the old, or let's say the incumbent or the legacy realm of regulatory issues and policy and governance. Because in my view, there are 3 things in terms of an initiative like what we're experiencing with blockchain and decentralized web and distributed ledger. Number 1 is the technology, the zeros and ones. And that is coming along very well. Number 2 is the business models. So you've got to have those 2 working together to really get scale, really get something rolled out. But number 3 is policy. So technology, business models, and policy dancing together, those 3 things have to work together, figure out how they're going to work together. And in my view, policy is one of the ripest areas for innovation. And what happened from the time that I announced this meetup, all of a sudden, the Attorney General's office announced this regulatory sandbox for fintech, which was like, wow, that's incredible. That is like incredible vision from one of our policymakers. In conjunction with that, we also have a United States Congressman, David Schweikert, who is the co-chair of the Blockchain Caucus. Another, I would say, political leap of vision. So we have an opportunity in Arizona to create leadership in the realm of policy, in my view. And that's a huge, huge advantage. And this conversation tonight is an opportunity to bring us together to explore some collaboration in the realm of policy. How might we transition from the past into the present? So it is my honor, and I am delighted to introduce Paul Watkins from the Arizona Attorney General's office to talk about the FinTech regulatory sandbox. Paul.
Thank you very much, Jay. Now, is it all right if I was walking around here just like you?
Oh, yeah,
or
absolutely.
Do you need me to sit down here? Okay.
It seems like in the desert blockchain events, for some reason, we kind of highlight the speaker's backside. So there you go.
There you go.
That's the camera, but I've got to.
Is that right?
I've got to adjust this. So
Okay.
I got some comments about that. But you're perfect.
That's quite disconcerting to be giving a speech while you're looking at your backside. I've not had that experience. Well, thank you all for having me, and thank you, Jay, for that generous introduction. Most speakers try to engage the audience by telling a joke at the beginning of the presentation. I'm a government attorney, so I engage the audience by giving you a disclaimer. that these are my views. They don't necessarily represent those of the Attorney General or the state. And so if the state takes a different position in litigation or regulation or anything else, then my
The
words.
Attorney General did just publish an opinion piece in the American Banker,
He did.
so we can assume that speaks for the office.
I thought it was a very good.
It was a great opinion piece.
So I'll tell you a little bit about my normal job here. I'm the Civil Division Chief in the Arizona Attorney General's office, one of 4 legal division chiefs. I'm in charge of civil enforcement, which is environmental enforcement, civil rights enforcement, consumer protection, antitrust, bankruptcy, delinquent tax collections. Nobody ever asked me to speak on delinquent tax collections, but that is part of my portfolio. And this really falls under the consumer protection financial regulation bucket of what we do. I'm here with my colleague, Evan Daniels. If you just want to raise your hand. Evan worked a considerable amount on this draft legislation and is an incredibly valuable asset for us to have in the office. There are really 3 topics I want to cover today. I want to talk about the purpose of the sandbox. I want to talk about sandboxes internationally and domestically, and then talk about the features of the Arizona sandbox. And I have some text. What I'm looking at here are the PowerPoint slides, which I don't think you can see. And I have some text that's borrowed from the beginning of our statute, which defines what we mean by a sandbox. When we're talking about a sandbox purpose, I think it's helpful to use a definition. And essentially, a sandbox is a tool to facilitate innovation by lowering regulatory barriers to entry. So the way a sandbox works is you fill out an abbreviated application form. You are given limited parameters to test a product, and you are allowed to conduct that test without being a fully licensed entity, thereby shortening the time to get your product to the market and hopefully reducing your expenses. And since we've rolled this out, one of the consistent questions I get is, why do you as a regulator care about innovation? We expect regulators to care about rules. We expect regulators to care about enforcement. Why do you care about innovation? And that's a question that I appreciate, and I think it highlights a difference between perspectives. There's a regulator perspective, and there's a consumer perspective. And it's important for us as regulators to step out of a pure regulatory perspective and think about things from a consumer perspective. Because when we think about things from a consumer perspective, it broadens the spectrum of interests that we're pursuing. I think consumers, they care about prices, they care about service, and they also care about being protected from fraud. As regulators, we're tempted to focus only on that third component, and we forget about the first 2. And of course, we can adopt the mindset where we think more rules, more enforcement is always better for the consumer, when in fact the consumer is looking at factors that we may be harming with the accumulation of all these rules, with the accumulation of a structure that actually inhibits innovation. And I think it's very clear if you look back on financial services over the past 20 or 30 years, all the things that you can do from this phone. If you're unhappy with your current service, you can get a different mortgage, you can get a different bank, you can buy a CD from the Bank of India or the Bank of China. I don't think there's any regulator arrogant enough to say that they are responsible for those changes, or maybe even that they have done enough to improve the consumer experience. You need a money transmission license, and the SEC says no to security. They can't all be right, obviously, and this presents a very difficult problem for entrepreneurs that is somewhat unique to the United States. And I believe puts the United States at some competitive advantage compared to the rest of the world. And you can see that a little bit with if you look at the global investment statistics. So if you look at global venture capital, the U.S. obtains about 54% of the global venture capital market. But if you look at fintech investment, the U.S. obtains only about 33% of that market. And many of the factors, of course, there's a lot of fintech going into China. There's understandably a lot of fintech going into places outside the U.S. But you would think that those numbers might be a little bit closer together than they are. And in addition to having sometimes a more streamlined and centralized regulatory structure, there have been a number of jurisdictions that have really pursued fintech by adopting sandboxes. And I have a list of some of them. The two most important are the United Kingdom in the FCA and the Abu Dhabi global market. Others that have made significant efforts are the Monetary Authority of Singapore, Hong Kong, and Australia. There are a number of countries actively considering adopting the sandbox. But as I said, I want to focus on the UK and Abu Dhabi. The UK program was initiated last year. And the way the UK is running their sandbox is they're accepting applications in what they call cohorts, which just means they're accepting them all at once. So their first cohort, 69 applications, 69 folks said we want to be part of this streamlined approval process. 24 were accepted, 18 tested their product, and FCA recently issued a report saying most of those 18 were successful. So they tested a product that worked, and they're planning on bringing that to the market. And based on that experience, the FCA considers this sandbox system a success. They moved on to their second cohort, where they received more applications, 77. They're going to have 24 companies testing products, and they'll find out later whether those tests are successful. The products cover a wide range of money transmission products and other consumer lending products. Some of these are proposed by startups, some of them by HSBC, Lloyds, and established players like that. This year, the Abu Dhabi global market initiated a sandbox. They started out small, they took 5 applicants, they had 11 applicants, they took 5 companies. And then they just initiated a second round of applications, 22 applicants, and they haven't decided how many of those they're going to take. What's interesting to me about the Abu Dhabi experiment is that they're getting companies from all over the world, including the United States. And that tells me that there is a demand for this, and that there's a demand in the United States. And if Arizona is the first state to institute this sort of structure, then we have the opportunity to draw entrepreneurs and capital from all around the country who would be willing to undergo the low cost of starting up in Arizona entity for the opportunity to launch the product. Now, let's compare that to the United States. There's been federal legislation introduced to require all our agencies to institute sandboxes. It's very difficult to pass federal legislation